Hello, how you guys doing? James here. Well, I got a video for you. It's, this is very important. Before you go out to elect for a certain party, I think you should need to listen to this video.
This meeting, and right now they are discussing how they will take sovereignty from all countries in the world. All countries who are members of the United Nations or who are members of the World Health Organization, who they are discussing whether you give up national sovereignty in the case of whatever they deem is like a health emergency. If this does not scare you, I can't tell you that anything else that will. We have been hearing about this new whatever order for many years, but let me tell you, it is right here in our faces. And right now, they're doing all of these things because they're very afraid that Donald Trump might win again. And let me tell you what Trump did. When he was president and he went to these organizations, he ended our relationship with the World Health Organization because he saw what they had planned. That they had planned to go in and create emergencies and then say because of those emergencies that they created, that then they had the power to supersede any other country's sovereignty. They were superseding our U.S. Constitution. That is what they're meeting in New York for tomorrow, which I believe is September 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. That is what they're meeting about. If that does not scare you, that a non-government organization, and do you understand that organizations like the World Health Organization that's basically funded by billionaires like Bill Gates who believe in over-vaccinating people, and we know what happened with him in Africa, and if you don't know, then you can go to YouTube and find out, or you can go to X and find out, because if you're looking for something and you use Google, you know it's not going to come up. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that everyone understood what a terrible situation we're in right now. Biden, we understand, is over there doing whatever. But right now, they're pushing all of these agendas that they know are detrimental to 99% of the people in the world. If this happens, then we will not have a U.S. Constitution. You understand that? Then you have people that no one voted for. We did not vote for anyone in the World Health Organization, and I will tell you about these organizations like this. These organizations are put together, these wealthy groups decide that they want to create an organization that's going to be over health care. And so that's exactly what they do. They create their own little organizations and say, guess what? We're going to be over health care, and we're going to be able to go and do just like they did in Australia. You know, in Australia, they went and took the kids from their homes or took them from schools and vaccinated them without their parents' consent. You know that they can do that. They also have these camps that they call it, so that if someone has whatever pandemic or plandemic they have at the time, they can go and take the people out of their homes and put them into these camps. They are meeting about that in New York City tomorrow. Okay? U.S. senators, Republican senators, are opposed to it. Harris, Biden are in favor of it. They're in favor of giving up our U.S. sovereignty. Okay, we have a big deal that's going on right now. As a matter of fact, it's going on in New York. The United Nations is meeting. And right now, they are discussing how they will take sovereignty from all countries in the world. All countries who are members of the United Nations or who are members of the World Health Organization, who they are discussing whether you give up national sovereignty in the case of whatever they deem is like a health emergency. If this does not scare you, I can't tell you that anything else that will. We have been hearing about this new whatever order for many years, but let me tell you, it is right here.
So you probably say, man, see, all I gotta say, know what you're voting for. That's all I gotta say.
Well, thank you for being here today for our press conference on
look at this. Somebody come look at this.
Most important
look at this.
That's
somebody come and look at this.
Attention relative to its importance in our country. And like many other issues, we're going to be deciding on November 5 what kind of a country we're going to be, and it applies to this issue as well. President Trump had withdrawn the U.S. from the WHO, and of course the Biden administration, like every other disastrous decision they made, reversed those policies when the Biden-Harris administration got in charge. Well, later this week, the UN is going to hold a, quote, summit for the future. And they're going to produce, this is right from their website, an intergovernmentally negotiated, action-oriented pact for the future with a chapter on transforming global governance. Ascending beyond the powers being sought by its subordinate agency, the WHO, the UN is seeking even broader and more powerful authority, as you will hear a lot about today. The Biden-Harris administration apparently intends to fully support the surrender and compliance of the U.S. to the UN in these endeavors. They are aligned with the international globalists that hate America, that hate the Constitution, that hate our founders, that hate our founding Judeo-Christian principles, and they want America to become like the rest of the world. They don't want us to be subordinate to or governed by our Constitution. No, they want America to be subordinate to and governed by the UN, the World Health Assembly, and the WHO. And in fact, they intend to join with others at the UN summit this week to vote to award additional powers to the UN Secretary General. They seek to facilitate the evolution of the UN from an international cooperative body to an international governing body. These powers would be triggered by any one of a number of so-called global emergencies, whether it's a so-called climate emergency, a health emergency, a cyber emergency, or a gun violence emergency, whatever that's supposed to be, a financial emergency, or whatever they deem appropriate. And the Biden-Harris administration is in full agreement with the UN and the WHO on efforts to place us under their authority and to require such things as their international health regulations, including the surveillance of U.S. citizens, the censoring of dissenting views, and much more. The American people didn't vote for this, and they don't support this, and it's up to the people's representatives, that's us gathered here today, to have a responsibility to expose this and to reject this. The U.S. should defund the WHO again. We should withdraw from the WHO. Any agreements with the WHO or the UN should require Senate approval or disapproval. And a bipartisan House majority voted to require Senate approval just last week with Tom Tiffany's bill on the House floor. So I'm proud to be joined here by House colleagues and others who are appropriately concerned and educated, informed, and leading on this issue. Again, this is the most important issue that's getting the least amount of attention relative to its importance and its impact on our country and on the American people. And with that, I yield to the gentleman from South Carolina, Ralph Norman.
Thank you, Congressman Good. I want to thank Frank Gaffney, Tony Perkins, all my colleagues for taking a lead role in this. As Congressman Good said, this is probably, other than our financial crisis this country's in, the most important issue to call attention to. The Summit of the Future will happen on September 22nd, 23rd. And folks, what that will do is cede America's authority, America's sovereignty to basically China. China is defined as a developing country. It is the number 2 economy behind America. It's not developing. It will cede our decision-making ability to China. That's what you need to know. Let me read out what the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, his policy brief 2, issued on March of 2023. I propose that the General Assembly provide the Secretary General and the United Nations system with a standing authority to convene and operationalize automatically an emergency platform in the event of a future complex global shock of sufficient scale. Guess who determines that? The World Health Organization. It reveals in their definition a possible global shock, including large-scale climate or environmental events, determined by who? The Secretary General. future pandemics. We all endured what the problem we had with the latest virus. High impact events, involving a biological agent determined by who? The World Health Organization. Disruption of global flows of goods determined by who? Not America, but the WHO under the Secretary General. Not only that, it requires a 5% payment by the United States every year of our total medical dollars spent, which are in the trillions. Bottom line, we cannot let this go. This is a top line issue that America must be made aware of. It's got to go through the Senate where it requires 60 votes, and we're going to fight to make sure all Americans know what's happening and stop it dead in its tracks. The WHO needs to be defunded, we need to do away with it, and America get out of it. I now call on Frank Gaffney with the Sovernty Coalition.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you to all of those present. I wanted to most especially thank those who voted last week for H.R. 1425, which did exactly what Congressman Norman just talked about. Requires the United States Senate to advise and, I hope, dissent on the kind of surrender of our sovereignty to global government that is envisioned both with respect to the World Health Organization and with respect now to the UN. That's, make no mistake about it, the agenda of the UN Summit of the Future. That is unmistakably what they hope to put in train with their so-called Pact of the Future. And the thing that is absolutely infuriating about all of this is not only, as these gentlemen have said, this is really important. And most people in the media, most people in government, certainly the vast majority of Americans have no idea this is even going on, let alone reading in the rest of us. So it seems to me that what is needed now is not only to have the Senate charged, as with the World Health Organization's International Health Regulation Treaty, also the Pact for the Future. There must be no application of whatever they come up with in terms of world government by the UN Secretary General without the Senate's advice and consent. And secondly, I call here today on former President Donald Trump to use his platforms to address and draw out his opponent, the Vice President of the United States, on whether or not she supports world government. And if she doesn't, for her to disavow what the Biden administration is doing right now to try to bring it about. Thank you very much. Next up is Andy Biggs.
Thank you, Frank, and thanks to Bob and Ralph for organizing this, and for all who are standing with us, and my colleagues, and those who are concerned about this. You know, this administration has attacked United States sovereignty since day one. They've done it by attacking our geographical integrity, and now they want to cede our sovereignty over to the United Nations, and in particular the World Health Organization. It's important to understand that how critical it is that we let the American people know how dangerous this administration is and their policies are. So, when we think about it, $850 million, that's our annual assessment today to the World Health Organization. But we consistently pay more than our assessment. Why is that? Because this administration wants to pay more. And we're the folks at the United Nations working hand in glove with the World Health Organization to have their way. We would be spending even more. And we'd be spending more to become enslaved to them because of the things that my previous speakers, my co-speakers have said. I introduced legislation, H.R. 2022, which gets us out of the World Health Organization and defunds our portion of it. Why is that? It's because the World Health Organization has become captured. It's been captured by our international adversary, China. We saw that as a result of the COVID-19 issue and how the World Health Organization protected Xi Jinping and the Chinese. We can't give up any more of our sovereignty, any more of our geographical integrity, any more of our economic integrity to foreign actors who have no concern about the United States of America other than to take our power and our money away. This administration is all in for it. That should be enough to tell everyone that this is a non-starter. I appreciate my colleagues for helping raise this today. I appreciate you and the media being here today, because this will be an ongoing effort. An ongoing effort as the out-of-control spending that Congress is engaged in, coupled with the border problems that we have. Let's at least not turn over our healthcare apparatus to folks from a United Nations or an international multilateral institution that has no concern for us. So I thank you for being here, and now I yield to the gentlelady from Wyoming, my friend Harriet Hageman.
Thank you. In my home state of Wyoming, we have common sense, something that seems to be sorely lacking in the Biden-Harris administration. Wyomingites that I have spoken with consistently ask why this administration would push to fund any organization that has clearly come under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. They wonder why Biden and Harris would try to enter into unconstitutional agreements with foreign entities that would force Americans to give up their sovereignty. It is worth noting that the bulk of the WHO's budget comes from voluntary contributions from multiple countries and organizations. Throughout the past decade, the United States has donated billions of taxpayer dollars, making us the WHO's largest financial contributor. Over this time, the CCP has exerted an expanded influence and corrupted the organization's data, research, and information sharing. Despite its abject failure, the organization is seeking greater control and greater funding while continuing to block legitimate investigations into the origins of COVID-19. On June 1st, the accord that amended the international health regulations was adopted by the World Health Assembly. While there are many concerning aspects of this accord, with its ceding of our sovereignty being at the top of the list, it obligates member states to address misinformation and disinformation. The result would be something that we have become all too familiar with under this administration: mandating, censoring, and sanctioning of speech and other actions that are at odds with the WHO Director General's deliberations. Of course, this is a clear violation of our constitutional rights, but Biden and Harris have never cared much for those. I have co-sponsored legislation introduced by Congressman Chip Roy, the No Taxpayer Funding for the World Health Organization Act, which would prohibit the U.S. from making any assessed or voluntary contributions to the WHO. International law does not trump the Constitution. Biden and Harris may be compromised by the CCP, but they cannot force Americans to follow laws and regulations not passed by our own federal government. Thank you, and with that, I cede to Ronnie Jackson.
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to start by saying, as a physician who's followed the WHO for many years now, in my time in government, during 3 presidential administrations, and now as my time as a member of Congress, I can tell you that the WHO in particular and the UN in general do not represent what's best for this country. In fact, they do everything they can to undermine us and defeat us. Look at what happened during COVID as a perfect example. During COVID, they lied to us, and they worked with China to cover up the origins of COVID. You have to ask yourself, do you really want, next time this happens, for the WHO to decide how taxpayer dollars in this country are spent, to decide what resources we are and are not eligible for, despite the fact that we overwhelmingly fund their operations? That's what you're asking. That's what you're going to get. And as my colleague, Mr. Good, pointed out, they can define an emergency in any way they want. And believe me, it will be creative, and it won't be a healthcare crisis again next time. It'll be something related to the climate or gun control or some other woke agenda that they have on their radar. This IHR treaty is nothing more than a redistribution of wealth and government control via global governance. This fits right into the communist and socialist ideology that defines today's Democrat Party in this country. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and their administration would like nothing more than to pass their responsibility to protect this country's health and livelihood to another country, many of which do not appreciate the United States, do not like the United States, and many of which are hostile to the United States. They would love nothing more than to pass this responsibility to these countries. I am a firm believer that from this point forward, we should never give another penny to the World Health Organization. They have not represented us well. They never have, and they never will. They are not an ally to this country. They are not an asset to this country. We should not be paying hard-earned taxpayer dollars for their efforts that are oftentimes against us. With regards to the United Nations, I said it before, I'll say it again. I think the best thing we could do for the United Nations is to go to New York and push the entire thing off into the East River. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. Well, we're here today to rain on the WHO's parade as they march for power. I think the WHO, we were here about 6 months ago, similar press conference prior to their June meeting in Geneva, where they tried to gain international support for their pandemic accord, which they did not do. And I'm becoming convinced that the WHO thinks that the rest of us have brain fog from COVID, and they're just going to keep trying this over and over again. But the facts do not change. This is a global power grab. And when you look at the various aspects that this would touch, in particular that have been touched on, that are very concerning, is their focus on so-called disinformation. What we recently saw in Brazil with X is a prime example of what governments would be doing, being empowered by the WHO's pandemic accord, calling on governments to silence and censor dissenting voices. You know, in America, we cherish the First Amendment. We cherish our freedom, and we cherish our families. Both are endangered under this pandemic accord. And I echo the calls here today, number one, to defund the WHO and get the United States out of it. But secondly, any agreement that is advanced by this administration, signed on to, should be submitted to the Senate for ratification and be treated as it is, as a treaty. So I thank these members of Congress for continuing to bring attention to this. While many ignore it, the WHO continues their march for power, and they will not stop. And it's going to be incumbent upon this Congress, this institution, stopping and protecting the American public from the WHO. And with that, I turn it over. Is Chip here? Reggie Littlejohn.
Reggie Littlejohn, co-founder of Sovereignty Coalition and president of Anti-Globalists International. Thank you to Representatives Bob Good and Ralph Norman and my other colleagues here, including my co-chair, Frank Gaffney, for organizing this press conference. 1425 was an outstanding victory which can prevent the depredations of the World Health Organization from moving forward without Senate consent, but we need an equally strong measure in respect to the United Nations. The United Nations Pact for the Future is going to be the deliverable at the Summit for the Future, which is this weekend, and nobody knows about it. So in this Summit for the Future, they are going to approve a platform, an emergency platform that will operationalize automatically in the case of complex global shock. What does it mean to operationalize automatically? It means that once they have passed it through the United Nations, they don't have to ask other countries to approve it. They will just go forward with their protocols. And how do they approve this? It's being adopted by something called the silence procedure. The silence procedure. This is a pact. A pact is a form of treaty. It's supposed to go through the ratification process internationally. Instead, they're doing it where they submit a draft, and if nobody objects to it, then it's adopted. Adopted. And then it's noted that it was adopted at the actual Summit for the Future. So this is absolutely unconstitutional. Not only that, it's against the Charter of the United Nations. They are trying to expand their powers. They're doing an end run around their own charter through the silence procedure. We need to raise the alarm about this, and we need to stop it. Thank you. Next one is Representative Eli Crane.
All right, thank you guys for coming out today to cover this. I want to say thank you to Congressman Good, Norman for hosting this, and my other colleagues for showing up. Obviously, this is a complete disaster. I'm not surprised at all that this administration is supporting it. They've completely betrayed us on our southern border, and it looks like they're attempting to sell out our sovereignty once again with this agreement. I just want to read what my colleague Congressman Norman read. This is from Gutierrez. I propose that the General Assembly provide the Secretary General and the United Nations system with a standing authority to convene and operationalize automatically an emergency platform in the event of future complex global shock of sufficient scale, severity, and reach. The key word there is authority. That's what these globalists want. They want authority. They want to strip it away from what we have here and the representatives that we have here that represent the people of this country, though none of them were elected by anyone in this country. And what do they want authority over? Because it's not just the next pandemic. All right, large-scale climate or environmental events. Wow, they could be real creative with that one. Future pandemics, high-impact events involving a biological agent, disruptions to global flows of goods, people, or finance, disruptive activity in cyberspace or disruption to global digital connectivity, major event in outer space, or black swan events. That's enough examples and enough reasons for them to get involved pretty much whenever and wherever they want to. And I hope that this body and the Senate continues to reject, push back, and stop this agreement and this push by this administration to sell out our sovereignty.
So, that's what it was really about, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's really about. I want to show you something else. Let's see here. There's some guy wanted you to hear on this one.
So the UN and the WHO are meeting today to have some discussions about the people, huh? Y'all remember back in like May and June, we was talking about these UN people eventually coming door to door or whatever, knocking on the doors and stuff? And a lot of people was getting on here talking about, it's a conspiracy, ain't no UN come knocking on my door and all this type of stuff. Y'all remember that? So this is what I think is gonna be happening. They know this election and all this stuff is coming right up. They know it's around the corner. They know people have been coming after Trump. Whether they staged it or not, they know. So in other words, they have all the reason in the world to lock down some stuff, to control some stuff, like some martial law type deal or something like that. Because they probably know on both sides, something gonna get sparked off. Now all this is just a theory. Just pretty much just a theory. Each month we've been getting a dose of something crazy. By the way the world's been going this whole year, I'm not looking forward to October or November. We're pretty much at October. TikTok, this is for entertainment purposes and educational uses. And just a theory in my opinion. So the UN and the WHO are meeting today to have some discussions about the people, huh? Y'all remember back in like May, June, we was talking about these UN people eventually.
Yeah. So our sovereignty is at risk.
The year my boyfriend was the poorest,
So I just want to show you that You've seen it for yourself from two people. And so this November, those that come across this video, that's what you're voting for. You vote for Biden Harris, that's what you're voting for. It's deeper than what it is. It's deep. This thing is deep. And see, while we're entertaining things like Puff Daddy and all this other little silly stuff, this was going on. This was really going on in America right now. But I just want to show you this video, what's about to happen. They're slowly taking our rights away. You know, they want to control everything, even you know, what we speak on these apps, these platforms. They want to control everything. That's how much they're trying to stop it. From Washington, D.C. all over. And man, it's bigger than what you can even imagine. So, it's not, hopefully some people will wake up. This is not about, and if you think about the latest discussion you see on the news with unaliving of newborns, you see what they're trying to do? You see, but it's under medical. Now you see her plan. She's not who she thinks you think she is. She's a power-driven woman, and she would do anything just to say that if it means costing people lives, and people think that she's all for them. She's trying to replace the American people. Did you know that she was born in Canada? You say, what that do with? And she, and mother raised her down in America. Some people that come from different countries, even though that they come into another country, but at the end of the day, they're loyal to their country. They're loyal to their faith. They're loyal to their country. And even though and their parents came from somewhere else, and they raised it. And just think about even with Obama, what he was basically what made him was technically a citizen because he was born in Hawaii. But when you look at his mother's background, he's more American on her side than so for his father's side. That's my theory. That's this for entertainment purposes only. But sit down and put the pieces together. We being fooled by a person's color and their appearance, and they try to act like they're part of us, but they really is like, like the person who looked like among them, but would agree to cancel some of them out by any means necessary, by the people that they look similar to. Everything about skin color is about who association is with. I don't want hope this video to reach out to many people, but yet you've seen it from Washington D.C. because it can't be disputed from the representatives themselves. And black people, wake up. Wake up. Don't let them fool you with this mess. Don't let them fool you. Don't let them don't let the sister girl, and unfortunately among our own, some of us who got the money and the status, they were willing to sell you out. They're not telling you. They're not telling them. They're part of them celebrities for Kamala Harris. They're part of the agenda too. Some of you being played. Some are kind of waking up, but they don't even know the whole story. World Health Organization. Think about that. Think about the last 4 years. World Health Organization. Think about that. And they didn't want us talking about it. Because why? The billions put on these social giants to cut it. Who funds the World Health Organizations? Follow the money. Follow the money. That's all I gotta say. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen. Hope this has been intriguing, but yeah, wake up. Watch who you vote for this coming November. You need to know the whole story. Don't just, if anybody, tell your relatives, don't just let mainstream media tell you. Because just like they said, mainstream media don't only want to tell you this. They got control of mainstream media. So share this video with your friends and relatives. This is important. Do it right during election. Don't let them hoodwink you with that. Show them a video. Show them what's going on. Because they try to make, even though I know Trump ain't perfect, he's done and said some things are wrong, but has he ever agreed with some legislation when he was a president with this one? No. You gotta look at the man's politics. They both got crazy rhetoric. Biden has some crazy rhetoric, Trump has some crazy rhetoric. But if you can push those feelings to a side, see who really is about. Look what the state was when Trump was in office. Look what the state we are in Biden's time. Biden had 4 years. Kamala Harris was up under for 4 years. The Democrats had it for 4 years to do something. Look what happened to his economy. Go on other YouTube feeds and look at the economy, job losses. Look at the economy which affect the mortgage. Look at the economy as far as inflation, getting a house, buying groceries. And then at the same time all of this is happening, here's this war kicking off. They're saying billions and billions and billions of dollars to fund 2 wars while the country is falling into chaos. Then she gonna tell, this is her latest slogan, we're gonna present some, when the money's not even, probably the money not even there. The money's not even there. They printing up money. The money's not, the United States is $1 trillion worth of debt. They sold you out. And with little left, it might be the ones who are Republicans. The last stand, and these people that speak is trying to tell us the truth, but they make them seem like they're the racists, they misogynists, they're the bigots. Oh my goodness, I want to rattle on, but this is what they do. But you have to really consider this. You got to consider all what you see, and go. And I pray and I wish my family and other people don't just go patronize the American channel, because American media can only tell you so much. You got to go to international media to go. That's, you can find somewhere on the internet and find the real truth. What's going on with everything, with the economy, the wars, how it's all tied in together, and what they ain't telling you. They want to make you that you think that you're free. Don't tell something like that. But you don't know. But you see it rising up in inflation, rising up. You're seeing businesses closes. You're seeing all things that is hitting in your town, your city, your area, and it's all goes back to Washington D.C. and with the decisions that they make. They're trying to break us, and we're going to be just like Argentina and these other countries, going bankrupt. So, and guess who? And only look what happened with the border. You gonna vote for her? Look what's happening now in the cities. Look at Chicago, New York, Rural Colorado, and these other places. While you have American citizens still out there, black, white, trying to figure out how they're gonna survive. We already have poverty. Then they're going to bring other people's poverty over here. And then displace a good portion of us to the point that you got people sleeping in campers and cars. Then they want to penalize you for that. for you being homeless? Whose watch is it? Who's in office right now? What's majority of the office? Why they prioritize some other people? That's all I gotta say about that. So you got a chance to decide November who you want to vote for, them or the other one, or you can vote the couch, as they say. Take care, be blessed. See you on the next video.